On this episode of HMP, I'm going to make the comparison between Mad Max Fury Road and The Lord of the Rings that you may never be able to unsee. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Porters, and joining me today, he spent this entire movie saying, man, I really need some chapstick. Sweet Sean Zakovacs from the internet.
Man, you're not kidding. You think about your skin health in this movie a lot.
Mm-hmm. Bruce Leslie apparently said Beetlejuice 3 times, and then poof, he's got to go be a dad this weekend. But that's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We got plenty of stuff here to talk about today because March marches into this month, man, and we reached out to our amazing supporters over at patreon.com/HMP. We asked them to pick amongst the group of actors that we call the rising stars of Hollywood. Now, here's how that voting shaked out. At the bottom of the barrel here, coming in last, we got Saoirse Ronan and Tony Revolori tied for last place. I think that means that they need to fire their agents because I'm not sure that most of our Patreon peeps even knew who they were. I think that's a bad sign for those guys. Austin Butler came in with a solid 25% of the vote, followed by Florence Pugh at a hot 31%, but just eking that out with the win at 38% of the vote, and our subject for the month of March, Nicholas Hoult. So, yeah, man, we saw him.
Very good choice by everyone. Good job.
I think so as well. We reviewed The Weatherman with Nick Cage a few months back in, and I think everybody was surprised when that movie, when all of a sudden Nicholas Hoult shows up in that Nick Cage movie, and he's like 16 or something like that. So.
I was certainly surprised. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, right, he has been an actor since he was a baby, and I don't think about that when it comes to Nicholas Hoult.
So we threw his name in the batch there for March, and here we are. So we figured we might as well start off our Nicholas Hoult movie with one that I think most people can get on board with, and that's 2015's Mad Max Fury Road. So we're going to get into all that kind of good stuff. And if you listen to the Dinger Zone already, you know where this is about to go. But do us a giant favor, everybody. Subscribe to this show if you haven't already. And if you're over there on the YouTubes, man, hit a like and comment for your mom, as always. Comments will be read on next week's show. We got a couple of comments here. One, they're not all super mom related, but we got enough. This one comes from looks like Sven Fan 87. In regards to breathing fire, he said, "I'll give this a down, but I've been here since hero time." Then a heart emoji and a peace sign emoji. So there you go with that. Speaking of Dinger Zone and everything, Hobbs Makes Comics commented and said, just wanted to say I love your Dinger Zone about the reunions that you want to see. My pick that I'd want to see is the 4 Hobbit actors do a comedy together. Don't care what it is. Those dudes clearly have a blast working together, even if we're remaking Wild Hogs for all I care. I think that you remember
Wild Hogs remake.
Oh yeah, man. Listen, kids grew up with Wild Hogs.
I know, man. Look. Nothing is more like I used to be surprised by this. Like when people have fond memories of shows or movies that are terrible. Mm-hmm. Like it used to surprise me, and now none of that surprises me anymore. Like I am very certain, and we ran into this on the old show, right? Like, oh, this is a family. This is somebody's family movie. Yeah. Like I know that girl who she grew up with the movie The Shadow, Alec Baldwin's The Shadow, and it was her family movie. So she loves that movie, even though she knows that movie's terrible. It doesn't matter. She loves the movie. And I get it. Like if Wild Hogs is your movie, your family movie, well, then maybe you need to have a conversation with your dad about how he needs to have better taste in movies, but that's not on you.
Yeah. I only remember, I don't remember what movie I was going to see, but I remember it was specifically the weekend that Wild Hogs came out, and I didn't think nothing of it. As a matter of fact, I think I thought no one's going to go see this movie. And so my brother and I were going to see a movie, and the amount of motorcycles that were in the parking lot was astounding. And like, and I think it was the top movie that weekend or whatever. Like it did good business, but we were kind of shocked. It was just like we roll up into the movie theater parking lot and it's just bike after bike after bike. It was wild.
You know, it's the same thing with 2.5 Men. Like I work with people now who are young enough that 2.5 Men, it was the show that they grew up with. And so they have nothing but fond memories of that truly awful show.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit there and I can't wave a flag at anybody. I watched, TGIF was my lineup, so I can't point fingers at nobody.
I mean, man, look, Growing Pains was my show growing up, and I know that show is trash. So like, I totally understand. I get it.
Our next comment was on my Discovering Dolomite video, which, by the way, I know you haven't seen it because the numbers are there. No one has seen this video yet, but I did a little movie on YouTube there called Discovering Dolomite, where I kind of talk about how I discovered Dolomite in high school via my stupid little white friends. At our high school lunch table and everything. I kind of did a little animation thing and drew the faces of my friends as I remembered them 25 years ago. Not very good. They didn't really look like that, but neither did I look like the picture I drew of me. And then I just put a whole bunch of stuff together. Please watch it. I put a lot of work into it. And
you did. I'll tell you what's wrong with that video off air.
Okay. So check that out. But Matthew responded on that video. He said, "Oh, Dolomite. He's chubby, not terribly attractive or physically gifted, but somehow he manages to kick ass in a fight." Which makes sense because he can't kick much higher than his own ass. Must see 70s cinema. He said, "I haven't seen any Rudy Ray Moore films beyond that, but now I have to." And Matthew follows up and says, "Hey, Mom, did we go to Blockbuster Video or another rental store every other weekend in the 90s? That sure feels like it. Renting movies is called streaming now, but it's basically the same, except you don't have to leave the house. What a world for entertainment lovers." Ciao. That's from Matt. Matt, thanks as always, buddy.
Thanks, man.
You too can leave a comment for your mom over there on YouTube. And while you're there, hit that like and subscribe button. Turn on those notifications for all that kind of good stuff. We really appreciate that. And yeah, let's get into it, man. Here is the IMDb plot line for Mad Max Fury Road. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. In a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a woman rebels against a tyrannical ruler in search for her homeland with the aid of a group of female prisoners, a psychotic worshiper, and a drifter named Max. I feel like I should have read the comma in there, but I didn't. This is written by George Miller, Brendan McCarthy. The only thing that he did besides this is 3 episodes of a 90s classic called Reboot. I don't know if
wow.
You ever see Reboot, little animated, computer animated thing, the early 90s? It's kind of corny, but I watched it.
We were speaking about this sort of thing earlier.
And Nick Lathoris, he did this in Furiosa and maybe the upcoming Mad Max, The Wasteland. Don't know. But this is directed by George Miller. He, of course, did the other Mad Max movies, The Witches of Eastwick, Babe, Pig in the City, if I could speak today, and the classics Happy Feet 1 and 2. Of course, starring, I can't speak today, Tom Hardy, Charlize Theron, Hugh Key Byrne. He also was Toe Cutter in the original Mad Max. Rose Huntington Whitley, who is still not returning my phone calls. Very rude. Zoe Kravitz, and our focus of this month, Nicholas Hoult as Nux, which is N-U-X, which is very 90s. So I got to applaud George Miller for that. That is, I feel like that kid should definitely be listening to Korn.
I could totally see the War Boys listening to nothing but Korn.
Yeah, it's a staple around there. Mm-hmm. So let's talk very briefly about the kind of other Mad Max films kind of leading up into this one, because obviously this is a sequel that happened, many years post, Thunderdome there and all that kind of good stuff. We talked a little bit about the other ones in our Dinger Zone episode, patreon.com/HMP. But with the previous kind of Mad Max movies and everything, the first one's kind of like you're a little bit of a boring up until the end there. I think we agree with that one, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, the last 5 minutes of that movie is what everybody remembers about Mad Max, because there's not a whole lot to remember about the rest of the movie except very, very handsome and young Mel Gibson.
Let me do an impression of the first Mad Max. It's soothing as hell, I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of that going on in that one, but that's fine.
And the Interceptor, I mean, it's just an amazing car.
Yeah, looks very, very, very cool. But you can kind of see the roots there, if you will, but it hasn't quite formed. And then once the Road Warrior comes in, it's like, it feels like you've really decided to lean into that exploitation kind of era and everything, even though this is kind of post a little bit of that era, I guess, because that happened more in the 70s and whatnot. But once we get, up into this area in the 80s and stuff like that, George is like, I'm just going to lean into this and stuff. And here's the thing. In my opinion, those Australian films tend to work better when they kind of lean into the wackiness that, may or may not actually be what Australia is.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, Road Warriors spawned 1,000 ripoffs because everybody was like, oh, if we get everybody in, GIMP costumes and put them in the middle of the desert, that seems pretty easy. It's not. And there's a reason why the Road Warrior is such a great movie. It's the writing. I mean, the writing of that movie is just incredible.
I won't have you saying that the writing of Megaforce is bad. I won't sit here and allow you to do it.
Okay.
No, I
won't. Well, thumb kiss to you, sir. And when it comes to Thunderdome, right? Thunderdome is the first part of that movie.
Can't we just get beyond Thunderdome? I'm sorry.
If we do, it's going to be trouble because then there's going to be 1,000 kids and like all of that stuff. And I get what Miller's going for the second half of this movie, but Beyond Thunderdome is basically the Stripes of Mad Max, where everybody who talks about Stripes and how great Stripes is only thinking about the basic training part of Stripes. They're not thinking about the second half of Stripes.
The third act specifically is not great.
I mean, driving around in an RV and like nobody gives a shit about that. And if you are just at a Bartertown, if you're just at Bartertown, the third Mad Max movie is amazing. But when you go beyond Thunderdome, you start running into trouble.
Yeah. And so then we had just, forever and a day. We had him go out and just make all these other flicks and stuff like that. Like you said, your Witches of Eastwick, your Babe Pig in the City and all this kind of stuff. Your Happy Feet movies, stuff that is so far and wide away from, the Mad Max movies. You kind of wondered, is George ever going to get around to, doing anything else? And because everybody kind of heard about like the other ideas that he kind of had kicking around and whatnot. And apparently this movie was kicking around so long that they had like 2 prequel ideas. And we've already seen one of those get executed at this point. And so another one might. And that's what's so funny. I don't know if you know this or not, but I've looked upon this when trying to put all the names and stuff together. This next movie, get this. He's basically doing a Tarantino, right? Because Fury Road is kind of the one movie, right? And then you have your Furiosa that takes place earlier. This next movie, the third movie, is going to take place like the day before or just before the first movie, before Fury Road.
Really?
Yeah. So like the thing that leads up to him being chased by those guys at the beginning of this movie, we're going to learn what happened previous to that. That's the word on the street.
So has that movie been greenlit?
No.
Like it couldn't have, not with the way that Furiosa performed. There's no way.
No. So that's the idea, but like whether or not we should have that, we'll talk about that later. But yeah. So going into this movie, like I wasn't quite sure kind of what to expect and everything. Now I do remember obviously the hype and stuff that was kind of leading up to it, and I went and saw it in the theater. I'm fairly certain it was first weekend because at 2015 we're probably I'm probably still running a buttload of movies at that point. So I'm like, I go in and watch it and I'm like, this was good. I enjoyed it. And then it seemed like everybody else watched it. And then to me, at least from the outside perspective, I found this to be a lot like The Hangover, because The Hangover was the same way. I saw The Hangover and I'm like, that was a good film. And then it was like, that one had a late start to it. Like 2-3 weeks later, all of a sudden, everybody knew what that was. And then it was the funniest movie you've ever seen in your fucking life. And I'm like, it was good. I enjoyed it. And I felt the same with Mad Max Fury Road. I was like, I enjoyed it. I thought this was good. But like everybody else came back and had so much love for it that I don't want to say it made me dislike it, but I did question things because I'm like, what did I not see? But you were like, because you were one of the on board from Goes, yeah?
Well, one, because it just took me completely by surprise. And by the way, I think you might have a personality disorder.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
I went into it with the same lens that I went into Top Gun Maverick with, where I was like, I've heard some good things about this movie, but we shall see. And when I walked out of Top Gun Maverick, I was like, "Oh, Top Gun, but with Star Wars added." Like, this movie's fun. Like that's all. That's all I came out with. It's not a bad movie at all. Like I enjoyed that movie, but it didn't spark me at all. Whereas with Mad Max Fury Road, I went into it and I was completely and utterly blown away by the visuals, the storytelling, the way that Miller is able to convey story through no dialogue at all. I mean, no one talks in this movie, and everything that's happening while it's going on. Like you are never lost watching this film. And then just having I know this is a term that I use a lot, but like just the creativity is just sparking off of this movie. There's no less than 5 things in this movie that you have never seen before. Like not only in a movie, I mean just ever. You've never seen them before. And this is the very rare case where I saw the movie and then I went to the theater the next week and I saw it again. I can count on one hand the amount of times in my adult life that I've seen the same movie in the movie theater. And it is a movie that rewards you for seeing it on the big screen. I don't think that is the case with every movie. Like I know that like you think that the movie theater is sacred ground, and I understand that.
It should be, but at least I'll say that.
Well, yes, but there are movies you do not have to watch a lot of things in the movie theater.
This is true.
But this movie, you are doing yourself a favor if you do, because it is so stunning, and it's one of those things where over and over again, I just found myself saying, like, what would get someone to think of that? Of how to do that? Like, not only come up with the concept of what we're looking at, like, think of the guys in the swamp on the stilts walking through that swampy water. So not only are you coming up with that concept, which is something I had never seen before, but then to figure out how to make that happen. It is one of one to me. It is, as I said in the Dinger Zone, Fury Road it would be my favorite movie that I've seen in the last 25 years. If there wasn't a movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once. That is my favorite movie of the last 25 years, but Fury Road is number 2. And it is it is so stunning that when I was afraid to see Furiosa, like, because I didn't want it to ruin it. And it doesn't. Furiosa is just a very good movie that isn't Fury Road. Like, if there were no Fury Road, we would be gushing over how great Furiosa is.
I think you're right. If Furiosa, because it was the movie that, is a prequel to this movie, if that would have come out as the first movie, I think we would have just enjoyed it. I think people would have been like, "Oh yeah, that's pretty sweet." And you got Hemsworth in there as a great scene chewing villain and all that kind of good stuff.
Terrific villain.
So like that'd be a great time. And then you could come over to this one and then you'd be like, "Oh shit, yeah, this would be," and this could be that, Empire-esque kind of middle chapter, if you will.
Yeah. But it is such an extraordinary feat that I don't know how he pulled this off. Like, yes, you had a million ideas, but you know who else had a million ideas and hadn't done anything with their thing in 25 years? Axl Rose. And we kept hearing about Chinese democracy forever. And then that finally released, and you're like, "Oh, sir, I'm sorry."
Yeah, you hear the first track and you're like, "Okay, that's interesting and different." And then after that, you're like, "All right, what that's long for this, huh?" Okay.
And then you compare that to something like Fury Road, where it seems to me that Miller kind of learned from the movies that weren't Mad Max more than he knew how to do when he was shooting the Mad Max movies. Like he just kept building a better machine. And I know that he had been working on Mad Max stuff forever because you kept hearing about it. And like, "Oh, Mel got in trouble, so we're not gonna be able to shoot this thing." And now definitely Mel Gibson's out. And then, like, you kept
and then
hearing
it's 30
like
years
that.
later, and you're like,
right,
what are we really gonna do at this point?
Right. So when Fury Road hits, and the initial response was, "Oh, this movie is very good." Like what I kept hearing is like, "Oh, you should totally see this movie. It's good." And for some reason, there was something about it where I was just like, "This is exactly what I want. This is everything that I like about filmmaking. It's visual storytelling, which people have forgotten when it comes to making movies for some reason. Even the people who are the best storytellers in the world when it comes to making movies, some of them have forgotten how to do it.
Yeah.
But Miller comes back with this movie, and it's so good that it changed the way I felt about The Road Warrior. Like The Road Warrior was my favorite Mad Max movie, and nothing was ever going to be able to touch it. Well, now The Road Warrior is like maybe 3 now, my third favorite Mad Max movie, maybe. And Fury Road is number 1, and it's not even close, man. Like the level of enjoyment that because I've seen Fury Road now, Jesus, I'm going to say 5 or 6 times, which is just unheard of with me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I want to see, like, okay, so I see that you sweeten that with CGI, but you can't tell because it's so good. Like it's seamless, the CGI in this. Well, it's not seamless, but it's damn close to seamless.
It's pretty good. So I'll let me, because this is a perfect place then for me to kind of jump in and give my small little comparison that I said at the top of the show. This movie, like you said, I really like the effects on it. I agree with you. I think they all look good, and then they're supplemented with CGI when they need to be for the specific things and whatnot. So I liken that an awful lot to the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, where they like, hey, we're going to do as much as this stuff as we practically can. We're going to use old effects. We're going to use new effects, forced perspective, CGI. We got the whole gamut here. So we're using all the tools that are available to us. But then come The Hobbit, right? When we're doing the Hobbit trilogy, and it's just like, we need to just fill some financial and contractual obligations here, so we got to roll through this. So we are going to do most of this in CGI. There'll still be some stuff, but it's going to look a lot, less polished than the original one is. And I think that Furiosa is almost that same kind of case. It's not bad. It's not terrible. And I don't think it's quite as egregious as The Hobbit is, but there are points in it where you're just like, oh, I can tell that this one feels rushed comparatively to Fury Road, because Fury Road has that perfect level of just practicality plus your CGI and the storytelling. It feels like Furiosa tries to pull a little from that, obviously, and it makes sense why it would, but doesn't really, because it's just not, it doesn't feel like there's as much care and attention to that movie as there is Fury Road.
I can't tell. I like, sometimes you can, but I can't tell every time if something is a practical effect or CGI in this movie. To this day, there's certain sequences where I'm like, is that car crash real? Like, I can't even tell.
There's a couple where I'm just like, it was an actual stunt man doing that? Like, there's one where he gets like thrown off a truck and rolls, the ground pretty damn fast. I'm just like, if that's real, that's impressive. But also at the same time, I'm asking you, is that real? I don't know. He hit, like, when he hit the ground and the sand hit, I'm like, well, they could program that, but I'm like, I don't know. And that's a good sign.
Unfortunately for everything else, after watching Fury Road, I became one of those people that I can't stand when I see them on YouTube who are just like wagging their finger, like, be better. Because after you watch Fury Road, for me, it's kind of hard to sit back and watch something happen where you're like, well, why couldn't you stick the landing on this? Like, Brave New World should be a far, far better movie than the one that you've released.
Mm-hmm.
You had twice the money that Fury Road had, and you can't even come close to the dynamic of Fury Road. And it's literally a 2-hour long car chase, and you can't figure that out. Like, you have you have everything in your disposal, and due to choices, due to we've got to get the next movie up and running as well and hide it in this movie, like all of that stuff. Stop it. Figure out what George Miller figured out, which is, I'm just going to make a really really great movie, and then we'll worry about everything else later.
Yeah, you don't have to have seen any of the previous stuff to worry about any of this. It is just kind of now it's a little vague in parts, but that's kind of part of the fun of it too, is you're starting to figure stuff out. And because, like you said, it's a very light on dialogue movie and everything, and which I think which is one of the reasons I didn't like it when I first saw it, because I was just like, what's going on? Could you give me a story? Can someone talk about something? I was a little mad. I mean, like when I first, like my first viewing, I was just like, listen, all the action stuff, I'm like, I think it's cool, but I'm like, where is the fucking story in here? I'm like, I can't find it. I'm like, no one's talking to each other. Like Tom Hardy is basically doing charades for half the film, for crying out loud. So I am just like, but I mean, upon rewatchings and stuff like that, I do like it. It's much better, but I had to get over that little hurdle because I was not there at the first round. I was just like, I feel like there should be a story to this, but I'm not finding it there. But it is there. It's just it's not blabbed to you like we modernly do today, where it's like we need to. I don't want to be spoon fed everything, but sometimes I'd like a little bit of clarification. But
to you, it's a bug. To me, it's a feature.
Exactly. But it's there, but if you're willing to look at it, and I think at least certainly upon the first visit, like you said, it is such a spectacle of a movie as well, that you may be overwhelmed by that little bit, and the fact that there's no dialogue may lead you into that kind of feeling that I had, where it's just like, this feels like a half incomplete movie. It's like, it's not. You were really just distracted by all the the bright lights and shiny whistles and stuff like that you weren't quite paying attention to the story like you probably should have.
It's just toned down, man. Like the script itself is toned down, and actually, it's the right move, because if you have Tom Hardy in your movie, chances of him doing some wacky voice are high.
And he's still kind of doing one.
He is, but he also has. I can't remember the actual amount of lines, but somebody counted it out. It was like he had like 18 lines in the whole movie.
Yeah,
that's right. That's correct. That's what you give that guy, because when he's standing there and he's acting, he is a damn good actor. They also did the smart move of having Furiosa be the main character of the movie. Like the movie title is lying to you. It is the story of Furiosa for sure, who is kind of where this needs to go. Because if you don't have Mel back for Mad Max, you can't keep trotting out Mad Max.
It's a little weird.
It has to be somebody else. So why don't we make it this badass lady that you actually believe can handle herself in a fight? Oh, and she got a robot arm. Like, yep, that's right.
Robot arm looks amazing too. It looks so good. I was just like, I love when something looks as real, and I forget that this person doesn't have a fake ass arm. And God bless Charlize Theron. Let's talk about her for a minute. She made her bones, and by bones I mean the Academy Award, by uglying it up.
Yep.
And but I say that, but like, it really wasn't her makeup job and all that other stuff. Her acting in that movie was unfucking believably good.
It's true.
It's like true. When I watched that, I was just like, oh yeah, she's gonna get it. A couple months later, sure, shoot, and she did. So no shocker there.
She can do anything.
Yeah, it's kind of gross. But she's so good in this, and like you almost forget it's her.
Yeah.
Like, she's really delving into this character. She doesn't mind making herself look ugly. But is still attractive enough that you're not disgusted by her, which is nice. You're just like, all right, she's all right looking. She just, it's the apocalypse.
She's in the wasteland.
Yeah, you're in the wasteland. You're not going to look good. You don't have a Sephora in the wasteland. It's, this is going to look bad. But I do have a Zoe Kravitz bit where there's one, she looks bad for most of it, but there's that last scene, all of a sudden she's got eyeliner on. I'm like, this is bullshit. What has happened here? She got real pretty for that last little bit there. And I'm like, no, that don't count. Come on now. But she's really, really good in this. But let's talk about this, because I don't know if this is apocryphal or whatever, but like, and I wouldn't know, I could easily imagine it being true that her and Hardy did not get along.
I mean, do you find it hard to believe that somebody is having a hard time getting along with Tom Hardy?
Listen, I don't think she's a peach either. That's a guess. I think there's a reason why she's as good as she is, and I think that's because she may be a little bit of a maniac. I could be wrong, but I feel a coldness from her that I feel like if she doesn't have her way. And again, she's Academy Award winner on this thing, and she's playing second banana. She's Furiosa. She ain't Mad Max. Mad Max ain't on there. But you're right. It is her movie, and she should probably have the most, juice in this thing. That's for damn sure. But at the same time, it is a Mad Max movie, and I'm sure he wants a little bit of that glory as well. For Christ's sakes, it's called Mad Max, so you can understand that. So I could imagine that leading to some loggerheads and some problems on the set.
Look, there is something weird about her because she has no accent. Like her accent will change from like year to year, and she even has brought it up. And it's not like a Madonna thing where she pretended to be British. For
what are you talking about? I'm Mary Guy Ritchie, and this is natural. I'm from Detroit, and it sounds just like this. And you're like, no,
right? It's not like that, because she did grow up in South Africa, so she had the South African accent. And then she got rid of that South African accent with a British accent, and now she's kind of what they used to call the Atlantic accent, where you could either be British or American.
Hello there, darling. We're going over to the Scotch Coast this evening.
Exactly. It's that 1930s 40s actor speak. Like that's kind of how she speaks in real life. But that also changes.
Pardon me, dear, I've got to go take a poop. No one ever said that back then.
So there is something sort of unreal about her, for sure. But I can't imagine Tom Hardy. On a movie set. And he's like, oh, this is what I'm bringing to it. Like, this is what I've decided. This is the voice I'm using. This is the thing I'm doing. Now, George Miller is a talented enough filmmaker where he's like, you know what, we can work with that. I mean, just think of the voice. Think of the voice that Thor is doing in the sequel. That should not work, right?
Yeah,
but it totally does, and he's perfect at it. And I love him as the villain in that movie. I really do. But you've been waiting 35, 40 years to make your new Mad Max movie, and then Mad Max shows up, and he not only isn't doing a Mel Gibson impression, which I like about the movie.
That's at least good, yeah.
That part is good. But he's got a totally different voice than the Mel Gibson voice from those movies.
Hold on. What if he decided to do an Australian accent and it was just a real shit Australian accent?
Like Monty Python doing an Australian accent.
Yeah, and that's what he just decided, and he insists that that's just Mel Gibson.
Why do you keep saying throw another shrimp on the Barbie? We don't even say that.
That's what we do around here, eh? Oh, God. Jesus. Tom,
the
we're going to
Outback isn't just right. Keep moving. Keep going.
Which makes me ask, when in the plot did the muscle come into place? Because part of me goes like, oh, shit, man. You're going to be trying to do this voice the whole time. Hey, we got a new element in the story that we'd like to put on, because we feel like they wouldn't want you talking too awful much if you were prisoners, right? See, that makes sense. Put this muscle on, please.
Yeah. And I think that I know that I'm bad mouthing Tom Hardy here. I think that he is a great presence in this movie.
He has to have the right material. It truly does come down to that with Tom Hardy.
But he is a good Mad Max. He is a good Mad Max. Like, he is a very physical actor where, when you have no problem believing that he can kick some ass in the wasteland, which is what Mad Max is supposed to do. He's a little beefier than Mel. That works too. Like, it doesn't matter. And I think not having him be the main character in this movie is a benefit to the movie. I do understand the people who rightfully are like, this is supposed to be a Mad Max movie, and there ain't a whole lot of Mad Max in it. Like, I understand.
I think there was a little. I think I had like a dose of that. Mostly, it was about the story, about how there just people weren't talking. But I was just like, no one's saying anything, for Christ's sakes. But there was
a feature, not a bug.
But also at the same time too, I was kind of that same thought of like, do you want to have any Mad Max in your Mad Max movie? But yeah, it's not about him ultimately. It is her story, and it works, and it's a cool, interesting storyline. And again, one of the things that I liked about it, upon the many subsequent viewings that I've had and stuff, is that, like, you don't know, is that they don't set it out for you, and we don't know why all of a sudden she's taking this turn, and things are gradually just introduced to you, and we don't sit there and go, the pregnant daughters of Fury, of what's his nut there,
Morton Joe
and everything. It's not like we're not smashed with that. We kind of put it together. He trusts us enough to be able to put this together. But the cool thing too is at the same time, it still looks like a fucking comic book. You know what I'm saying? Because we've got these. Sure, they're the brides of him that were, you know, there for breeding purposes and stuff like that. And so, but we're gonna dress them up hot. We're gonna dress them in white, and they're gonna have this, like, it's very cool. It's so stupid. And the ones on the, you know, the precipice of birth here and everything. And you know, you got the other one. It's a lot of fun. It's a cool method, and it allows a certain bit of tension in there. And of course, you know, we have that come up later in the thing where she gets cut and then, of course, kidnapped and all that kind of good stuff. You put real, actual, you know, stakes involved, and it's really good. And because of the way the world building that they've done up until this point, you buy all of it. And I think that's one of the best things that George does in this entire thing is makes you believe that the wasteland is real.
Yeah, and all done through visual. Mm-hmm. No one is explaining anything you're seeing, which is why I love it so very much.
The closest you'll get is
I'm a very wordy boy. And so when I'm able to see someone who is a master at being able to convey, this is the thing, this thing too. And if you're not paying any attention, you're not going to understand this, but it's coming up later. I promise you. Like, it's just again and again, everything to recommend this movie.
I love the design of all the people in the town that are all begging for water and stuff. It's just like you've got just an unbelievable load of extras there, and everybody looks so fantastic, just grimy and gross and disgusting, as you would imagine they would be in this, you know, waterless, you know, hellscape here and everything. And like they feel like real people. They feel like real people that really want some water.
Yeah.
And so you absolutely buy it. But then over top, again, all the great design of it. He's like, you know, just got this Mussolini tower here and everything, how he addresses everyone, and the design of the Morton Joe, just himself and all of his weird diseases and the suit that he's got to get in that helps sustain him and all that kind of stuff. There's so much wild lore that goes on in this thing that we just kind of show you. We don't even talk about it, but you can put all together what's kind of going on here. When you see all of the, you know, his mutant offspring and stuff, all the boys that are just like all messed up and whatnot. You got the little guy and the big guy. It's like everybody in between, and what he's trying to do without them actually sit there and explaining it to you, which is so lovely.
And that's the reason why I love it so much, right? Like, you can totally believe that a Morton Joe is a real thing that exists in the wasteland.
Yeah.
But you can also believe that the Doof Warrior is something that the guy with the fire guitar.
Yes.
Like that is the Doof Warrior is something that exists in the wasteland. And it's because George Miller is such a deft storyteller. Like, you've seen enough weird things that seeing a guy that has a flame-throwing guitar, that's, you know what, that's just part of this. That's exactly right.
So
that just makes sense.
Wild, like it is like out of like an 80s metalhead's notebook that he just drew when he was a kid, and it was just like, all right, there's going to be like 8 billion speakers. It's going to be up on this 57 Chevy that's going to be on, you know, Bigfoot tires, and there's flame going to be coming out of the head of the stock of the guitar and everything, and he's going to be on a bungee cord. And you're like, what the heck? Who thought this up? It's so awesome and original. But you're right. By that point, you're like, yeah, hell yeah, that's exactly what should be there. And it's that war cry. It's them putting on Flight of the Valkyries in Apocalypse Now. But yeah, it's just one of those. George Miller's handed direction with everything is what I've kind of was shocked at you know, kind of this watching again, as I really just kind of sat back and watched what he was kind of doing, where he was kind of pointing your eye to everything. And that's when you really do kind of, when you can sit back and kind of just analyze this thing. He knows what he's doing so hardcore. It does feel like he had been, gestating this bad boy forever and a day, and he finally got to put it on screen as he wanted to.
Yeah. Yep. And he had so much time to build out the world that we don't even see.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, what it gave him was the ability to be able to come up with great names for people. Like if you going through the cast list for this, right?
Yeah.
You have Glory the Child, Corpus Colossus, the Ace. You've got wow, that's too many. Keeper of the Seeds. The Organic Mechanic, Doof Warrior, the Bullet Farmer, the People Eater, Cheeto the Fragile, the Dog, Capable, the Splendid Argada, whatever that is.
Oh.
Toast the Knowing, Rictus Erectus, Slit, Immortan Joe, Nux, Imperator, Furiosa, and then you got Mad Max. Like, these names are amazing. They are amazing.
George Miller, we know you played D&D when you were a kid. There's something about it that's just like, yep, that's a guy who played him some role-playing games back in the day.
Just it's why I keep coming back to this movie. It's that it's there. Every time you see it, you see something new in it too.
Yeah, I think this time I really appreciated the different factions that were out there, from your Bullet Farm and the other, what's the other guys? I forget. But what
the gas?
Yeah, so your Gas City guys, and then your other ones.
Gas City.
And so just how both of those guys, and like they weren't supposed to kind of end up crossing with them, and then they come back, and so not only do you have the regular people from the Citadel that are coming after you, now you got these other two clans coming after you. So, it's full court press from everybody. It's so much fun. And and it is because it is that chase. And again, much like the Lord of the Rings, we are just walking from one point to another.
No, sir.
And then back.
No, sir. No, sir. This is very different than the pacing of Lord of the Rings.
You're right. They go back. They go back by the end of this movie instead of just being.
Yes, it only took one movie.
But ultimately, though, it's a lot more fun than I had that first time. I don't know what it was, but I guess I liked it enough. But I was, and then when everyone else just super loved it, I was like, did we see the same movie? I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was life changing. But the more I see it, the better it is. And I think you're right, though. Hopefully you got to see it in a theater, and if you didn't, hopefully you've got like some surround sound, because that is one thing that I was just. Whoo, golly, I love so much. The soundtrack on this movie and the mixing on everything is so amazing. When these vehicles are rumming and that bass just kind of shakes the entire house. Beautiful. So it's definitely worth it on that front and everything. I know that's one that is amongst the demo discs that everybody throws out, just because there's so much, great sound and action in it. You're like, hey, somebody comes over to the house, you're like, you want to be impressed? Sit down and watch this. And then the whole, everything just goes right in their brains. And they're like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, yeah, that's why I do this shit. Because it's that cool. And this one definitely falls under that camp. So let's talk about the boy of our hour here, man, is Nicholas Hoult.
Yes.
This was like, he'd been doing plenty of things and stuff, man. But I feel like it's so bizarre. Every little thing that I think he does feels like it brings him up yet another level. You know what I mean?
Well, because he keeps showing you that he has different gears, right? Like, we know him as Beasts in the X-Men movies, being nerds. Like, we know him from that. We know him from Warm Bodies. We know him from a couple other things. He was a child actor. You get surprised in how many things he's in as a child actor.
Yeah.
But he is the boy in About a Boy. He
that
was in
big,
a ton of
one.
stuff. Right. He's in a ton of stuff. But what you don't realize is just the man's range. Like he can play just about damn near anything. And I think it's one of the things that I'm looking most forward to about Superman is I want to see how he's going to play Lex Luthor. Because he's going to do something interesting. And James Gunn is a deft enough hand where he knows what's going to work and what's not going to work, because I have a feeling we're going to see something from Nicholas Hoult that we probably haven't seen from him before again. And just the manic performance of Nux in this movie, like, you love Nux by the end watching this.
Here's the funny part is Nux is the only character that like truly has a true arc in this movie.
Yes.
Because he goes from one extreme all the way to the other, and you do buy it. That's the best part, because it doesn't feel like it's hamstrung and bullshitted in there. Then all of a sudden, he turns nice at the end. It's like, that's not how it goes. He is learning things. He is getting exposed to stuff. And that's what, like, his mind is changed kind of as as funny as it is, as he witnesses things, as he sees things, he goes, wait a second, this might not be what I think it is. And his character then evolves and changes and decides to do what is considered the right thing, because he's kind of opened his eyes up and stuff. And it's great. It's seeing somebody that's currently in a cult, who starts out in this cult, and he's ride or die with the cult, which is an amazing part in design choice for all the War Boys and everything, of having them be this kind of manic, suicidal, ready to die for the cause at any possible moment. It makes them so dangerous, because like regular, henchmen and stuff, they die and whatnot. They die, dime a dozen and everything. But henchmen don't normally go, screaming into the, maw of death. That's what these guys do. They're absolutely insane. And then the great part of introducing, like, the spray paint for the mouth and everything, of just kind of like, okay, now he's on PCP, and it doesn't matter that he's got an arrow through his head. He's going to jump off with these exploding, what do you call them? Spears or whatever. He's jumping off and onto an exploding, like, so it shows you like the length that these guys are willing to go. And it's really badass and scary. And so when you've got this other guy who now we're following and stuff, that this guy is as possibly lethal as the rest of those. And he starts out as a real piece of shit who's just, smacking his blood bag around here and everything. And, but eventually becomes friends with the guy. And like, that's an actual arc for a movie. And it comes about in a natural way and not, stupid. And we don't do in a buttload of dialogue either, which is another nice thing.
Oh, now it's nice. Oh, I see.
It is now. It wasn't when I first saw it. I didn't know any better. I was wanting to, I needed a little bit of a backstory. Maybe I should have gotten a pre-crawl like in Star Wars or something. Give me a little backstory, a little reminder. Previously on Mad Max.
So I'm going through the IMDb trivia, which I have never done, and I'm doing it right now. I did not realize this. Apparently, the editor had roughly 470 hours of footage to edit. Watching it took 3 months.
Now, at the same time, it is true that the cameraman would also leave the camera running a while when nobody was looking. They should have turned it off, but at the same time, too, you got to check every frame just to make sure something gold didn't, pass through, just in case.
Also, This part makes sense when you learn about George Miller's process. I don't know why I didn't think this, but they shot this film in sequence.
I was about to say, I would guess based upon some stuff, more or less, probably sequence, because you kind of got to know where you're at and what you're doing, and especially with as many things are blowing up and falling apart on this flick. I don't know how many main trucks you got,
right?
Because this movie cost a decent amount of money, but not like an ungodly amount of money. I think it's like $130 something million, made like 300 or 400 worldwide, something like that, if memory serves. So
I just remember, I remember it being a very big surprise how much money it made. Like it wasn't, it kind of was the surprise of that summer, right? Because you kept hearing about it, but it's not like Mad Max was this gigantic franchise that,
and this had the potential to fail, like big time, right? Because there's so much space in between the movies. How often does that work? Very rarely. And even when it does, you still get, Phantom Menace.
It's not like you're getting Happy Meal toys of Mad Max. So the fact that it did as well as it did was a real surprise. And that it was
Furiosa playset.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm Nux.
That'd be a great, like, eating a chicken McNugget, just goes, what a glorious day. Spreading sweet and sour sauce across his face. I'm ready to go to Valhalla.
So if I'm reading through the tea leaves here correctly, when you walked out of this movie for the first time, you probably used a term like something like, well, it's an interesting movie, right?
I thought it was all right. I'm like, that's all right. I'm like, some of the action was pretty cool. But like, again, I was fairly let down by the story. It did just seem like, okay, we went to a spot, we didn't get what we wanted, then we came on back. Okie doke. And it is that, but it's also more than that. Like that's
way more than that. It's way more than that.
And it's very root structure. It is that.
Yes.
But indeed,
yes, it is.
But indeed, inside that book are indeed pages.
Yes.
It's not just the cover that, it's not that fancy comic book cover that draws you in. Sometimes you could open the book and there's actually good stuff inside of it too. But then
turn around, drive back.
Yeah. Then again, there were some moments in time when Marvel was doing the opposite of that. Like, I remember the early 2000s where they'd make some dog shit covers, and then you'd open up and the art inside was beautiful. I'm like, what are you doing? Usually it's the opposite. They're like, we hired Mark Silvestri for the cover, and you're like, this is amazing. You open it up, and it's just like looks like not David Mack. He's too good. Somebody, Alex Maleev. You'd open it up and it'd be Alex Maleev on the inside when you had somebody like Silvestri on the cover. Disgusting. Why would you do that to me? Bait and switch. And comics were still like $4 a pop back then too. That's still ridiculous. Forget about it. Sorry, I had to rant a little bit about old comics.
I will say that I think that it should be a federal crime that when you are on like the Marvel, like if you're getting comics downloaded into your iPad, it should not cost as much as a regular comic book. It just shouldn't.
Oh God, they should, like if digital comics cost $1, comics would be so big.
Agreed.
Comics would be so big if comics cost $1.
But no. We've got to charge the exact same cover price as the physical comic.
It doesn't make any sense.
I don't get it. It should be criminal.
Lock them up. That's what I always say.
Lock them up.
Get them right to there. Now, have you seen? Now, speaking of which, I saw some IMDb reviews that were fantastic. That were all basically that kind of like, no plot, nothing's going on, 1 star. Overrated, underwhelming monstrosity was the title of this.
Oh, okay. Whatever, buddy. Show me you know nothing about filmmaking without saying so.
Title of this one is called Blurry Road ?
Oh my Lord. I can't hear this. Not on my own show.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen. Come on now. When people do when people do say things like that, though, I just want to go, you really need to watch more movies because there's so much garbage. The stuff that you think is bad is mediocre at worst because there's so much horrible stuff out there. It is like, it's unbelievable. This doesn't fall anywhere remotely in that category.
No, not even close. Well, I mean, look, if I didn't like this movie, even if let's say I didn't like this movie at all, right? It wasn't my taste. I didn't understand like all of the story structure that's happening behind the scenes, like any of that. Like I don't get any of that, right? I would still recognize this as something that like, oh, this is not for me, but the people who like this kind of movie will like this kind of movie. I have the perfect example of this, which is the Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That movie is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to adore that movie in the first place just because of the subject matter. But I understand it is a very good version of what that movie is. Yeah. It's probably the best version, right? And so like, well, this is going to be great for people who like Dungeons and Dragons. Meanwhile, I'm on the show with Bruce that week, and Bruce is like doing victory laps and slam dunking and like all this stuff. And I was like, okay. Well, hold on. This is your taste. This ain't everyone's taste. And he's like, and we're going to get 5 of these, and there's going to be a TV show, and it's going to be the greatest thing ever. And I never said it on the show, but I was like, hold on. Like,
we do have to look at what the box office makes.
This is not a movie for everyone. This is your taste, not everyone's. And so for me with Mad Max, that is what I have. Like I would be doing victory laps. I would be high-fiving everybody after seeing this movie, except I understand there are many people who are going to see this movie and be like, this is not for me. Like, I totally get it. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a movie for everybody. It is a movie for me. If you are somebody who loves Everything Everywhere All at Once and Mad Max Fury Road, then take what I recommend as a movie. Like, oh, I love those movies. What else is this guy going to recommend? These are my style of movie. And so like you may be fuming listening to this. How dare you say such great things about Mad Max Fury Road? You were my friends and you've betrayed me.
Why?
But like, because I've been in that position too, where, oh man, this guy's gonna really rip on this movie I hate.
I love it.
Of this podcast that I love. And meanwhile, the podcast is like, I'm gonna tell you something. You're gonna hear a lot of bad things about this movie. I love it. And I'm like, how dare you betray me? How dare you? I understand it. I get it.
So we got to ask ourselves, as we've asked in all of these things here, Nicholas Hoult, is he doing it in this movie?
Yeah, man. Like I said, it's a speed we had never seen from him before. Like he's basically building a better acting machine every time he does a new role.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like, what? Honestly, who I can compare him to the closest is Charlize Theron.
Yeah, that's kind of true as well. She's got a lot of stuff on the table.
She can play anything, and Nicholas Hoult is getting to that part too, where like, oh, this guy can literally just do any role. He could be in like some adaptation of a Shakespeare play, and he would be fine. He can also be in the dumbest like action movie ever made, and he's going to be totally fine. He can play a smart character. He can play a dumb character. He can be manic. He can be subdued. He can do anything. It's pretty great. Like, I think that one of the reasons why I wanted to put him on the list is because I think that even if he doesn't become a gigantic movie star, which I think he might after Superman, I really do. I think that he's going to be somebody that you are going to be seeing for as long as they're making movies. If he's still alive, as long as he doesn't pull a James Franco,
yeah.
I think we're going to be seeing him forever. I really do.
So to give you an idea, like 2018 alone, he was in Deadpool 2 and he played like a weird, dandy in The Favorite.
Mm-hmm. Come
on. can you get much different than that of playing, Beast and then, some foppish little guy who's, dirty.
Yeah.
He's very dirty in that film. Everybody's very dirty in that film. What am I talking about? The movie needs a bath. But yeah, he's fantastic in this. Like I said, he is the one character that does have an actual arc to this whole thing comparatively. I'm sure Furiosa's got like the journey that she goes on, but she's not ultimately, changed, if you will, or anything.
No, she doesn't have
Max.
No. Well, that is the thing about Mad Max is he keeps moving on and learns nothing.
I'm still having flashbacks and everything. Can't get over these demons, but what are you gonna do?
They murdered my wife and kid 50 years ago. I'm still going after them with this car.
You know what it says though? No, but that nobody talks about. Maybe getting wife and kids murdered and everything keeps you young. Maybe that's the thing. He's just like,
and less racist over time. Weird.
No, that the only reason that that's because he just that's why they had the muzzle there for most of the film. Cut it out. Now, this is a tough one since we're on the Nicholas Hoult train here and everything, and this may come up as like the default answer for this up until a point, I suppose. But if you had to recast this role, who would you do? I've got a good one.
Oh, I want to hear it because it's going to be somebody who is basically a chameleon, right?
Mm-hmm. It would have been a different take on the role, but he would have been the appropriate age for it and everything, and he had not yet passed. But Anton Yelchin.
Oh, he is good. You're right. That's the perfect casting.
Anton Yelchin would kill this. It'd be a different thing, but he would do something with it that would also be a very interesting choice.
I totally agree. Yes.
But like the same kind of build and body size here and everything. And, but like I said, around about the same age. So I think that totally works.
Yeah. Like you can't put in somebody who is like more imposing, like Adam Driver. Like that would totally not work. No, and you have that is the perfect recast.
But what a great design for all the War Boys too, because
Yeah,
everybody's kind of the same sort of like, they're not buff, but they're not like, they're not sickly thin, but they're like just that kind of perfect little area right there to where they're like great disposable warriors.
yep. I mean, just everything about. I don't know how you could make this movie better. I don't think there is a way you could do it.
It's pretty tough unless you want to put some cashmere in the background. I know you'd like that.
Oh boy, don't get me started. Don't get me started. You. We were doing so well. I didn't yell at you once this episode.
Hey, what can I say?
Bruce isn't here, so I'm not going to curse.
Well, movies only come in two types here, everybody. They're either art or fart. I don't know where this will lie for you. You've been holding everything so close to the chest. Sean, art or fart for Mad Max Fury Road?
Not only is this art, this is my favorite kind of art because this is accessible art. This isn't something where this is art for people who get it. Like that is not what this movie is. It's an awesome flick. Like this is something that you could have seen this 40 years ago and it would have fit right in with the movies of that time.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much originality in this thing. There's so many new ideas. There's so many moments where like, you know what? I'm not a big fan of this part, but don't worry because that's going to go away in 30 seconds. We're already traveling down the road faster than you can stop. Like it's just the best. It is. There's a reason why it is my second favorite movie of the last 25 years. It is incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely art because it is. You can enjoy it in that like pure action standpoint and everything, where you're just going and you're watching a whole bunch of cars smash into each other and things blow up and it's bitching and it's awesome. It's very, very cool, super stylized and all that kind of good stuff. At the same time, like the world building that they put together, the art design for this entire film where you buy every stitch of everything that is everywhere. And they do such a cool job in like dumb shit that doesn't need to be there. Like we're all like the logo that's kind of branded onto the back of their neck that lines the headliner of the truck. Why? I don't know, but it looks fucking cool. It's so cool looking. And like, but every little tiny thing is thought of, like the 8 billion places where Furiosa's got weapons and stuff within the cab of the truck alone. Just every little tiny detail was so clearly and thoughtfully, expressed to us that you can't not call this thing art, because you can like I said, you can have so many different ways that you can sit down and choose to watch this movie and focus on a particular thing, be it the performances, be it the art, be it the action and cinematography and stuff like that. There's so many different aspects of this movie for you to explore in what is very much easily on the surface a super simple nothing kind of movie, because the plot of it's not huge, but it's there enough.
Right. But I will say that this movie doesn't work like RoboCop, though. I will say that, where like if you are a dummy watching RoboCop, you love RoboCop just as much as someone who is a smart person who loves RoboCop. You just like the movie for a totally different reason. Whereas if you're watching Mad Max Fury Road and you don't like this style of movie, you think that this is a dumb movie if you're a dummy. Like if you are a dumb person, you literally are like, this movie is just people driving. This movie is dumb. I would much rather watch The Fast and the Furious. Like you are a dumb person.
Like this person who rated it 1 out of 10 and said a chilling indication of the destination travel in film, or destination trend in films.
Oh boy, whatever.
Yeah,
whatever. Somebody has a thesaurus. Good job. I like it. I did not put that together until you were speaking there. We're like, oh right, this isn't a 2-level movie. This is not Starship Troopers. This is not that movie.
Yeah. Oh, now, have you ever, or do you have any inclination to see the black and chrome version? Are you aware of this?
I do know the black and chrome version. Yes.
I haven't sat down to watch it. It came on the 4K disc that I bought way back when, where they were like, oh, we put the special one out that's got all the stuff in it and everything, and it's got the black and chrome. But I haven't sat down to watch it. I wanted to watch the regular color version for this because honestly, I don't know how well the black and white version would actually end up doing. Same thing with Logan. I was like, there's something about having that kind of color and stuff in there, especially in just all of those great scenic, desert shots and all that kind of good stuff. It's like, I feel like it just muting the colors on that would just be a little bit of a crime.
It does, man. I mean, it's part of Mad Max to me is just how brown and, how brown and white that those movies are. Like, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, it's
especially
like that warmth of it and everything. And then when you get to the big maw of the storm and whatnot, where things kind of turn purpley and whatnot, like there's some cool stuff in there that I feel like if you go to black and white, it kind of just sucks all the fun out of that.
You know what it reminds me, hearing about the black and chrome thing, what that reminds me of is the Steven Soderbergh cut of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he cut out all the dialogue and he turned it and he put it into black and white.
Yeah.
Because his whole premise behind doing that is you can follow this movie. You know everything that's happening in this movie without any dialogue.
I love the little experiments that guy does.
I know, man. That guy just loves movies, man.
He's just
he really does.
In things that no one would have ever asked for any particular reason, where he just goes, I'm going to take both Psychos from, Hitchcock's and Gus Van Zant's, and I'm going to edit them together. You're like, why? He's just like, kind of want to. And he did. He edited both of those movies together because they're basically the same movie, but they kind of intercut between things. Very bizarre, but that's Steven Soderbergh for you, everybody. That will do it for this episode of HMP Mad Max Fury Road, our first in our series of Nicholas Hoult movies here and everything. We got our next one up on the docket next week. This is one that I was I don't know much of it going in and everything, and when I saw it, I was really blown away. And that's going to be Warm Bodies, the vampire movie.
No, zombie.
I forget. It's all kind of somebody dead in it.
He in a zombie movie. He in a vampire movie.
That's right. Well, you're right. He is also in a vampire movie that we probably will end up doing later within the month as well. So listen, he likes all the crazy things from beyond and whatnot. So we'll be checking that out next week. In the meantime, where can people find more of us on the internet, Sean?
Oh, please go to YouTube, our YouTube channel, the HMP, and also it's getting warmer out. There might be some new scooting videos coming out pretty soon. Mm-hmm.
4K action, put it down, get yourself a little bit of look at
that's right. That's right. You're not going to learn anything new about me. You're just going to see a lot of cool scenery.
Yeah. It'd be funny if you just threw in one little fun fact every now and it doesn't have to be real, just some sort of fun fact of just I only like blueberry waffles.
Oh, and I got a drone. So I'll be editing that in too.
Heck yeah. All right. So check all that kind of good stuff out there. We really appreciate that. The YouTube there makes a whole lot of a difference, everybody. Really appreciate it. Love you so much. And thank you to the people that supported the show over at patreon.com/HMP and voted on Nicholas Hoult month here and everything. I think we're going to have a really good time with that one. So that will do it for this episode of Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Join us next week for Warm Bodies for Sweet Sean's Kovacs from the internet, the absent Bruce Leslie. I'm Adam Portress, reminding you to be a dirty baby and leave a comment for your mom.